This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abbaim. We're continuing in Mishna Berura Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Lamed Beis. We're middle of Seif Yud Gimel. The Mechaber said in Seif Yud Gimel, Yeh HaKlav Sholem. The klav should be whole. Shelo Yehei Bei Nekavim. There should be no holes in it. She'ein Hadiyai Over Olav. That the ink should not pass over it. So that the letter does not look like two. If there are holes in the klaf, then there is an issue that the letter will be split in half. We saw the Mishna Berura and Sivkat Lamed Beis on that on Thursday. We go to Sif Yud Daled. Hasoifrim hazrizim oisim shloisha minei klafim. Soifrim, who are energetic, careful in their work, they make three types of klaf. Ha'av yoiser lichta by Parsha Shema shiktana. The thickest one to write the Parsha of Shema, which is a small Parsha. The Parsha of Shema has how many words? 42 words. Besides Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Vehadak mimenu. The Parsha of Shema altogether has 54 words. Keneged the times that Amalek, keneged the times of keneged the letters of the Aseres B'nei Haman. The Rekeach says. Keneged the Oisios of the Aseres B'nei Haman. Vehadak mimenu, a thinner Parsha, leParshas V'haya im Shamaya. The thinner klaf, you write V'haya im Shamaya, Shi Yoser G'doila. V'haya im Shamaya is bigger. How many words are in V'haya im Shamaya? I believe 122. 72 Keneged the Ayin Vei Shemois, and then 50 Keneged the Shar Nun, if I'm not mistaken. Ula Parshas Kadesh, Parshas V'haya Kviyacha Shem Arukos, then Oisim Klaf Dak Moed, Uvezeh Yismalu Abatim B'Shaveh, V'zeh Noilatvan. This way, if the Parshios look equal, even though they're not equal, because there are much less letters in the first Parsha of Shema than in V'haya, and V'haya has less than Kadesh and V'haya Kviyacha, it looks nice when there's an equidistant number. It looks nice when the size of the klafim are the same. Siv Katan Lamed Gimel. V'hadak mimenu leParshas V'haya im Shamaya. Ta'as Sofer. V'tzarch loimer leParshas V'haya Kviyacha ki shehi yoser gedoyla. Really, it should say for the Parsha V'haya Kviyacha, because that's bigger. Ula Parshas Kadesh V'haya Shemaya Shem Arukos. In other words, V'haya Kviyacha is mid-size, and Kadesh and V'haya Shemaya are the longest. The Rami Kasav Shahasoifrim Shalahem Oisim Tikon Acher. There's another way to get around this. They make the klaf the same length and the same thickness, but they leave columns from the shorter parsha on the side. I would presume that that's what they do today, only because it sounds a lot easier than making thicker and thinner, and like everything in this world, the real way to do it, they don't do anymore. So I presume that this is what they do, although I don't know firsthand. Let's see, in the Dirshu he brings that nowadays the Kesses HaSofer writes that we're not noig in any of this. Meaning we're not makbid. Why? The Mishna HaSofer says, in their days where they made the batim from a very thin klaf, and the thickness of the parsha where it was boileit mi bachutz, so from the outside it looked like one bias was bigger than the other. But nowadays they have good batim, and nobody knows what's doing inside, and therefore what you don't know doesn't hurt you. Okay. Basically, we don't say Zakeli Me'aveu because you can't really tell anymore nowadays. Now, we had last week that there's a din of Zekeli v'anveu, even on the inside. And even though nobody could see it, there's still a din of Zekeli v'anveu. Which is interesting. So a friend of mine, Reb Chaim Kasdan, called me, and he said the Steve Jobs of the Apple computer, his motto was even the inside of a computer that nobody sees, it has to have the most beautiful wiring. It has to have other computers, it's nice on the outside, but the inner mechanism, what difference does it make about the aesthetic quality of the inside? Nobody looks at it. But Steve Jobs held even the inside of a computer, even though nobody could see it, it has to be the highest quality. So that's what we had before, that Zekeli V'Amewa applies even on something you can't see. In other words, in your own mind, knowing what the inner mechanism of the mitzvah is, the inner aesthetic quality of the Chefza Shel Mitzvah, it lends chashivos even be'einecha, even though you don't see it, just knowing about it. Anyway, that's interesting. Siv Katan Tesvav. Im la'achar shenichtav nikav b'soicha hei oihamem kasher afilu nikav kol toichai shehanekav memalei kol hachalal. If after the tefillin were written, there's a hole in the hay or the mem, it's kosher, even if the whole inside was pierced, where the nekev is mamali the whole chalal. Again, after it was written, we had in the Mishna Berura at the end of Sivkat and Lamed Beis that after Kesiva, if there's a hole in a letter, we determine if it has Tzuras Ha'ois, Ad Makom Hanekev. But right now we're talking about after it was written, there is a hole in the hay or in the mem, it's kosher, even if the whole interior has a hole, because it's not affecting the written part, it's just a pierce in the hole. Says the Mishna Berura, this is sort of a hakdama. You know what? Let's see further in the Mechaber. The Yushalmi implies it has to be surrounded by klaf even from within. So if the hole fills up, if there's a pierced hole that fills up the interior of the hay or the mem, so you say, what do you mean? I could read it perfectly. Yeah, but it's not mukaf klaf, it's not surrounded by klaf on the interior. So the Yushalmi is mashma that that's an issue. Fine. Let's see the Mishna Berura. Sivkan Lamedah. La'achar shenichtav v'chulu. Nakdim shtei akdamas v'achar nevar be'ezar Hashem Yisrach. Let's give two introductory remarks. Number one, Kol oisach she'alav tzurasai haroi la'oisai ois. Every ois has to have the proper image of that ois. V'imlav pasel. If it doesn't have the proper tzura, it's pasel. U'v'zeh ein chiluk im loy nichtav kelchasai oy im achar kach neskalkel. If an ois does not have the right surah, it is irrespective whether it happened before it was written, so it was never written properly, or if it happened after. If at the end of the day it does not appear in the right image, it's possible. Beis kol ois she'ein gvil mukafla me'arba ruchasab psula. Any letter that's not surrounded by some type of parchment on all four sides is pasul. Uvedin zeh yesh shnei panim. This halach has two qualifications. Aleph, dafka imloi haya mukaf gvil kaidam ksiva. The issue of mukaf gvil is only before it's written. Avam la'achar ksiva, nasa nekev. But if after it was written, there was a hole on the exterior of the letter, so there's an area that's not surrounded by parchment. Oy kara samach lois, or it tore near the letter mibachutz. Va'al yedeza einay mukaf gvil. Kosher. So the din of mukaf gvil is only if it was not written correctly. But it was written correctly, but then there was a little pinhole on the edge of the letter on the outside, so now it's not surrounded by parchment on the outside, it's kosher. Like the Shulchan Aruch will explain in Sif Tazayin. So this is number one. Number two, Das roiva poiskim, the insach liyos mukaf gvil rak mi bachutz laha'isios v'loy b'soichan. According to most opinions, the requirement that it's surrounded by parchment is only on the outside of the letter. Chutz me'er Yerushalmi shemachmir, except the Yerushalmi that we just read, that Yerushalmi is machmir, that even the interior of the letter has to be mukaf gevil. Which means, according to Yerushalmi, if you had a pinhole in the middle of the mem, so it's still mukaf gevil on the interior, it's just there's a hole through the middle, that's fine. According to everybody. Let's explain the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch starts off, if after it was written, there's a hole in the hay, now, the question is, why does the Mechaber say that the hole came after it was written? Why not even before it was written? Because Mukaf Gevil is only a requirement before. But we'll see. On the inside, then it would be even if it was a hole before it was written. So why does the Mechaber say if it came later? The truth is, says the Mishna Berura, this that the Mechaber says after it was written there was a hole, this that we say it's kosher, it's even if it was before. It's just if there was a hole before, l'chadchila you shouldn't write if there's any hole. It's just a din l'chadchila. Aval be'emesim avar v'kasav afil mahaynekav koidim shenichtav kosher ve'ein tzarech shum tikun. Okay, we'll hold it over here. But bottom line is that the din of a hole is a din that it has simukaf gevil is only a problem if it was before. If it was after, there's no issue at all. And even if it was before, if it's on the interior, it's also not a problem. Okay, Rabbi said we'll hold it over here. Shkayach. Have a good day. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.